Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody to this live stream today. It's great to be going live again. It's been a while. I'm happy to be here. I hope you're happy to be here as well. Hope everyone's days are going great. Hope everyone in the States aren't too bogged down by that debate. I tried to watch, that was tough. But we're not talking about that today. Today, we're talking about representation and diversity within film and TV. I have an amazing guest with me today. I'm going to be asking him some questions, find out his opinions on diversity and representation. So let's get him in without further ado. It is Leo from Geekly Goods. Leo, welcome to the stream. How are you today?
Hey, what's going on, Elliot? Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing good. Just waking up, got my coffee in, ready to talk a little bit of diversity and representation in film and TV, man. I am excited, bro. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Oh, of course, man. We've been talking a while now about getting you in for a live stream or me coming back over to your channel. So I'm glad that we are here today and doing this. So let's not waste it. Oh, and also, guys, if you are in the chat as well, make sure you let us know your opinions on diversity and representation in film and TV. And if you have any questions for myself or Leo at any point, please do drop those questions into the chat. I'll be checking it regularly. So, Leo, let's start kind of simple. Let's talk firstly about maybe the kind of shows and films you watched up as you were growing up. Maybe the ones that you feel influenced you the most, influenced your love for film and TV. Yeah, man, fire away.
Well, I was definitely a comic book head, so it was Spider-Man, Static Shock. I mean, just pretty much any comic book show across the board. Teen Titans, you'll see Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Like, I was all into that, but also anime as well. Dragon Ball Z, Power
Yep.
Rangers, Digimon, Pokemon, things like that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Those kinds of things as well. And then in terms of movies, I mean, I was just all over the place. I accidentally ended up watching one of the Chucky movies. I want to say it was Child's Play 2, and that made me
Wow.
really not like dolls or any
Wow.
kind of creepy clowns or anything like that. I'm not into that at all because of
Yeah.
that movie. But also like things like Goonies, Forrest Gump, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And then other movies as well. My dad was a huge Spike Lee fan, so
Brilliant.
Do the Right Thing was huge in my
Mm.
household. I mean, we watched that a lot. I recently did a rewatch, and it'd been a while, and I was like, wow, it's crazy how much this movie has influenced me, and I can't even really remember. So
Yeah,
it
right.
was just like one of those we watched a lot. She's Got to Have It, a lot of those early Spike Lee films.
Mm.
Huge Spike Lee thing in my family. And then Disney, a lot of these movies, man.
Yeah.
Lion
Yeah.
King. Lion King's my favorite movie of all time. Hot take, but I mean, I had like this little Simba that I would carry around when I was little, and I just was always watching that movie whenever I can, man.
Dude, yeah, I was the same with Lion King. I think my dad will always say that in the first 10 minutes of watching, I knew the lines to the whole film already,
Yep.
like that's just how much it was on. Yeah, it's interesting. Like you seem to have definitely watched a lot of the same shows that I have. Digimon massive when I was growing up, as well. Power Rangers was a big one.
Yes.
And it's interesting what you're saying about Spike Lee, actually, because I, in my sort of first video back last week, like Spike Lee was, I've only really properly been introduced to him this year,
Really?
which, right, this is it. I always knew about him, but I'd never gone in to watch any of his films. And
Mm.
I've got to say, Do the Right Thing. I'm with you there. It is a massive film. What a, just brilliant, brilliant film. And as you correctly say, it's still so relevant as well, like, which is kind of mental. All right, so let's move on to the kind of things that you look to watch nowadays. Now, I know it's going to be slightly influenced by the channel as well, and that you're going to try and watch a lot of the current things going out. But for you on a personal level, like, what are the things you like to watch these days?
I mean, I like to stick with action, sci-fi. Those are like my two loves. I still love anime, still like supernatural things. I'm getting more into like drama and period pieces the more
Okay.
that I watch movies. Recently, like my favorite movie of this year is The Five Bloods.
Yeah.
I really just love character movies.
Yeah.
And I kind of, for me now, it's kind of like, all right, I gotta read the synopsis, see what the movie's about, and
Mm.
if I feel like it's something I'll be into, I'll enjoy it. I've been watching Raised by Wolves, The Boys, and Lovecraft Country every single
Yep.
week,
Yep.
and then yeah, just kind of watching movies as they come. Lovecraft Country has been awesome. Raised
Yeah.
by Wolves and The Boys as well. Like those are 3 shows that I'm just like consistently impressed with.
Mm.
Which I'm not like a huge TV show guy, but I'm like I am this year. And it's probably because of quarantine, so
Sure,
I'm
sure.
like all up into the TV shows. But I mean, tons of movies as well. It just really depends on the synopsis for me and who's in it, who's directing. It really is a combination of those things. Like I just kind of have to be pulled in by one of those 3. Like
Yeah,
it's got to be the cast, the director, or like what the movie's actually about. And it's
yeah.
typically sci-fi or action, but like I said, lately I've been getting more into drama, into more period pieces, into more
Mm-hmm.
character pieces. I remember like 10 years ago, I was like, if it don't got any explosions, rockets in it, I'm not watching.
Yeah, yeah. I know that feeling. That I mean, I only ever went to the cinema to watch the big action films because I was like, it's explosions. It's got to be seen on a big screen. I'm not going to go watch The King's Speech at the cinema. I'll wait till that comes out on DVD, which I've actually incidentally still not seen. So there we go.
That makes 2 of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with that development then and what you're watching these days, as you say, it's got to be the cast who's making it and probably the synopsis. So I want to focus maybe on the cast and who's making it then. Do you feel that when those choices come into play, do you see nowadays that it is maybe a more diverse cast, a cast that maybe there is better representation, or has that not really had an influence?
I would say yes. There is a little bit more diversity in it. What I'm a little upset with, and this is an example I'll pull from Star Wars, is that
Yeah.
the main character is still not really diverse. And you could say Daisy Ridley is a woman, so that is one diverse
I think you can say that,
characteristic.
yeah.
But I mean, it's I wanted Finn to be so much more, man.
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of black characters that still get sidelined, that
Yeah.
still play that side character role. And I was talking about Static Shock earlier, and they
Yeah.
still haven't made a Static Shock movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think Marvel and DC being the giants of comic book movies now that they are, Anthony Mackie pointed something out in Marvel is that Black Panther is kind of their token. There's
Sure.
one movie where there's a black main character and a large black ensemble, and then the rest of them kind of follow that same formula with the cast and with the director. And again, I know they're continuing to expand. They're making the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but why isn't that a movie? And I know it all boils down to, well, that character's not as popular, but Cap was.
Yeah.
Cap wasn't really as popular either when that came out. I don't. Hulk was pretty popular. Iron Man, though.
Yeah, I know it was. Yeah,
really weren't that popular. So
sure,
for me, it's not really an excuse at this point.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's a funny one, and it's something I've always sort of tried to say about the MCU as well. Is that a lot of people go, whenever you kind of bring up the MCU's kind of overall been pretty bad for representation, and people go, yeah, but you got Black Panther. Oh, cool, I got one. Cheers, mate. Yeah, thanks.
Right.
And actually, incidentally, Falcon is my favorite hero in the MCU, and I think a lot of that is based off, is probably based off of a lot of the fact that he is a black superhero. And yes, we had, we can go, yeah, but you had Nick Fury and War Machine. It was like, yeah, I know, but this was the one where I kind of got interested, and this is the thing, like when you have more in there and there's more choice, people will latch onto what they like. Not everyone likes Iron Man, they prefer Thor. Not everyone prefers Thor, they prefer Captain America. So if you've got the choice, why don't we got the choice? So just while we're kind of talking about superheroes, I'm just going to jump into the chat quick. We've got Nerdy Blurb TV in the chat, and we've got Chillmonger. Thank you very much for joining us today, guys. Chillmonger had a really interesting question, and actually I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this because I think I've seen you speaking about this on Twitter anyway. But Chillmonger wanted to know our thoughts on the castings of both Hawkman and Kang the Conqueror.
Ooh.
Yeah, jump to you first, man.
Okay, really happy about the Kang the Conqueror, especially because that means we could possibly get a Black Reed Richards.
Sure.
Now, if they go the Nate Richards route and they do bring him back to the past and have him become Iron Boy or anything like that, that means they will hook him and Reed Richards up which means we could get a black leader of the Fantastic Four. Like, I was
Right.
going crazy, and Jonathan Majors is amazing. I mean, he was
Yeah.
great
Oh
in
yeah.
Lovecraft Country. He was great in The Five Bloods. I still haven't seen The Last Black Man in San Francisco, but I
No.
hear nothing but great things about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing talent. So when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, there's potential for more black characters in the MCU. So I was
Yeah.
like super excited. And I'm curious as to where they're going to take that, because it seems like we're going for a Junior Avengers.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that they bring in him as Iron Boy and we get
Sure.
him as a hero too. Like, there's just so many possibilities that I'm really excited about that casting. Hawkman, kind of the same. I don't really know a lot about Hawkman, so
Yeah.
I admit that once I saw the casting, I was just like, yes, it's a brother. So felt good about that, but I don't know too much about the casting, and I know he was the guy was in Invisible Man.
Yeah.
He's been in a couple of other things, but I haven't really followed his career, and
Sure.
I don't know Hawkman, so I
Yeah.
kind of didn't really know how to react to, except for like, yes, another black character.
Yeah, I think I had very much the same feelings as you, because I really don't know either of the characters from the comics. So for me, it's just I'm kind of in the dark. Just, I'm trying to like be involved in a way that makes sense, but it's difficult when you don't know the characters from the source material. So when it came to the the Conqueror casting, I was like, for me, like you said, it was all about Jonathan Majors, really, because I thought it was, and for exactly the same reasons as well. So I was excited to see that, someone that is very much at the forefront at the moment, going to get, hopefully he'll get a bit more of a break on that in that sense. And yeah, and then with Hawkman, I'm even more in the dark, really. So I'm just going to kind of chill and watch what happens with that one. And, I think for me, the learning of Hawkman will be from watching Black Adam. So yeah, we'll see. And I mean, I'll be learning about Black Adam at the same time. So we'll see, that's going to be fun.
For real. I actually posed an idea on Twitter. I was like, man, it would be cool if DC just did a Justice Society of America and they were all black and men of color. That would be
oh my gosh,
really cool, because I know they want to bring in like Dr. Fate,
yeah,
the Atom, the dude who changes like from small to large.
Right.
Man, that would be cool to just have them all men of color. Like, give us a Justice League, man.
It's about time. Cool. Right. Just before we move to the next section, I'm just going to jump back into the chat because we've had Philip Productions join us. How you doing, buddy? Very good to have you here on the stream. If you have any questions, you have anything you want to say about diversity representation, do let us know. Okay, so let's move on then to sort of the main meat and drink of this video, and let's just dive in about the overall diversity representation. We've kind of touched lightly on the MCU and the DCU and just comic book films in general, but let's bare bones. What does diversity and representation mean to you, man?
To me, it means seeing people that look like me, seeing people who don't look like me as well, getting work and working together on movies, especially because they're talented. I think a lot of people were getting passed up big talents because of how they looked.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see directors like Barry Jenkins, Lulu Wang working on these movies and working with a cast full of people of color and full of white people too. I want there to be a mix. When it comes to diversity for me, that doesn't mean just black.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean all black for me. It means black, Hispanic, Asian, and white coming together to work together. So for me, diversity, inclusion, it means I see people from many different backgrounds working on something.
Yeah.
Not just people like me, but what I love so much about modern movies is that I do see more people like me.
Yeah.
Because I have gone back and I've had a couple film classes, and of course I've watched some of the classics, some of those early talkies. Nobody looked like me.
Yeah.
So it's like things have very much progressed, and seeing more black directors, seeing Ryan Coogler get more work. I mean, it's just really meant a lot to me lately to see more black people, not only in front of the camera, but also behind the camera. And I think there's still a little bit of lacking there. The Oscars thing was a little bit weird, and I see how they were trying to help, but I thought making like a checklist was so unnecessary. It kind of made me think like, okay, well, what were you guys doing before then? like what? Why do you need a checklist to include people that look like me?
Sure.
It felt so weird. But I mean, going back to just movies in general, again, really happy to see the opportunities. I want to see some more leads. I want to see some Black James Bonds. Like I want to
Mm,
see some of these main franchises. I
mm,
want to see more Black leads in those.
yeah.
This is just I'm just throwing out random ones. Star
No, no, no.
Wars,
Yeah,
Lord of
yeah.
the Rings. I mean, it's like for those big budget franchises, I'm looking for a Black lead character, not
Mm,
a
mm,
sidekick, not a assistant, not a friend. I'm
yeah,
looking for like a lead.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
looking for Idris Elba or anybody else to be
yeah,
James Bond. You know what I mean? I'm looking for more of that because I'm starting to see more diversity everywhere else. I
yeah.
just think that we need to see more Black leads because we do have Black Panther, and then that's it.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, I think it's and there's something really important that you touched on there as well, and I'm seeing a few comments in the chat as well that kind of link to this, and it's not about necessarily having more of just one thing. It is about everyone coming together and making sure that we're all in it, working it together, because I think there's something really, really interesting that came out of the BLM movement this year. And, I think someone's saying, isn't it, just be happy that Black people are only fighting for equality, and not more than that, because, and I think that's really kind of what it boils down to. And, we're seeing from Pillar Productions in the chat that, and he's right, there's still really bad representation for Hispanic people, for Latinx people. There's still,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, really bad representation for South Asian and East Asian people as well, all Asian
Mm-hmm.
people, particularly here in the UK. It's kind of funny, there's a lot of conversation about Black representation. And whereas I agree with that, what's really interesting is that actually in the UK, there are more South Asian people that live here than there are Black people. And so, but there's not a massive conversation around these guys as well, and how we're better representing them in the media. And the only person I really see talking about it is Riz Ahmed, and that's because he is of that ethnicity. Well, he's more
Mm-hmm.
Middle Eastern, South Asian. So yeah, it's interesting. And let me see. Hang on a second. Nerdy Blurb had a really actually. I'm just going to go to Chillmonger. He had an interesting comment that we can talk about. He says, I'll celebrate a Black character, but not when he's white in comics. There was a cancel of reads spanning the multiverse. All were white. I find that a really interesting comment. And if you don't mind, I'll take the lead on this one
Yeah.
first. And throughout all of sort of the MCU, particularly I'm going to highlight the MCU here because obviously they've had a lot of times where they have changed characters. Looking at Valkyrie, we're looking at Nick
Mm-hmm.
Fury, we're looking at Idris Elba's character. I forget the name off the top of my head.
Oh, you mean
Heimdall.
Heimdall?
Heimdall.
Yep.
Yeah, and I understand when people are used to a character being a certain way. However, if that character's race or their gender or their whichever other minority we're talking about is not integral to the storyline of that character, I personally don't see the issue of them changing if it's a race swap, a gender swap, once we get to a completely different medium, especially considering the decades ago that comics were written or were first written and how the world has completely changed since
Mm-hmm.
then. So, yeah, for me, whereas I understand where people are coming from, I don't think it's that big an issue. So, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what you feel about that.
I feel the same way, to be honest. I think if it's not completely integral to the character's story, Reed
Mm,
Richards, for example, I don't think it really matters to change the race, especially like you were saying, it's modern times.
mm,
Comics back then were all white characters, and that's all they were drawing. And
yeah,
now there is more of a selection. They can include people that they want to. So
yeah,
I think that when it's not integral to the story, why not? I mean, for me,
yeah,
it's like, hey, I got somebody in the movie, you know what I mean? So I think that it doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, Reed Richards is just a prime example, in my
sure,
opinion, where you could just have him be any ethnicity and it doesn't change the fact that he's still a super genius, that he could still stretch all his limbs. It doesn't really change anything whether he's
mm,
white, Hispanic, or Black. He's
Yeah.
still going to be able to have those powers. He's still going to be the leader of the Fantastic Four. Whereas somebody like Thor, for example, that's Norse mythology,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
a character who mythologically did look like that. So I
Sure. Yeah.
understand in
Yeah.
that case. But I mean, for somebody like Reed Richards, even Spider-Man, well, you got two different Spider-Man. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You don't need to
but
worry
I
about that
mean,
now. Yeah.
it just doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. Cool. Interesting. So Nerdy Blood was asking in the chat, and I think this is a great question. Why is representation important to you guys? So, Leo, we'll start with you on that one, mate.
So when I was younger, I went to a school that was pretty diverse. So I
Mm.
had friends who were Latinx, I had friends who were black, I had friends who were Asian, I had friends who were white. I feel that everybody should be equally represented. I feel
Yeah.
like kids that are from all of those different backgrounds should be able to look up at screens and see people that look like them. They
Yeah.
should be able to relate. Everybody should be able to have a hero. And everybody
Yeah.
should be able to fit in, not even just in front of the camera, but also behind the camera, because there are people who want to work in cinematography. There are people who want to work in the editing bay. There are people who want to be writers. They need to be able to see that that's a possibility. And I
Yeah.
think that the more we get diverse, the more we show people that it's possible. Because when you don't, it feels impossible to get there. And again, I remember having groups of friends, and still do, from many different backgrounds. And I want us to all be able to look at these things and see somebody that looks like us, to see more of a realistic take of what life is actually like.
Yeah.
Life isn't just one race. Life isn't just one type of person. It's many different people. It's many different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So I think that's why diversity for me is so important, because I want to be able to see people that look like me, and I want people around me to be able to feel the exact same way. Because I know when I saw Black Panther, that was the only Marvel movie my parents rushed to see in the theater. That's it. That was the only Marvel movie a lot of my friends went to see in theaters, like the opening weekend, because we finally had an MCU movie where the main character and most of the cast looked like us.
Yeah.
So it was an event.
Sure.
I mean, we call it a movie, an MCU movie, but I was like, that was an event. People who didn't even watch Marvel movies were lined up out the door to go see that. And that's why it's so important, because when you have characters that look and feel like you can relate to their story so much better. And wow, I won't go into too many details, but the whole like duality of thought between Killmonger and Black Panther is huge in the Black community. So I that's what diversity and inclusion in movies means to me. I get the chance to see people who look like me, while others do as well.
Sure. Yeah, and I think for me, it can go even deeper than that again, because as you mentioned with the Oscars and how they've got this this checklist going now, and I think people are. Well, I think the word diversity, it's kind of morphed a lot now. And I'm seeing a lot of people like you and I, who strive for better diversity and better for representation, are starting to move away from the word diversity, because there's a stigma around it now, that it is just becoming a checklist. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But I don't wholeheartedly agree with it as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of stuck in the middle on the word diversity. And so I tend to, and I try in a few of my videos to land more onto the word representation, because I think it's a very different word and it means a very different thing. For me, diversity and representation, the difference, and we're going to keep going back to the MCU, I think, for this, but it's just a great, easy thing to reference. Falcon, War Machine, Nick Fury are diversity. Black Panther is representation. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between making sure that there is a Black character in there, or a Hispanic character in there, or an Asian character in there, and there's a difference between what they do in the film. Is there a story about them? Do they have a storyline about them? Do they have development? Are they a character that moves with their own thoughts and feelings, and is not, they might not be the lead, but doesn't have to necessarily always link to the lead? Can they go off and do their own thing? So for me, it really is about how people are represented, to make sure that they are autonomous within their own stories, or within a story that isn't always linked to something that has been the main and the lead for a very long time now. So yeah, we'll kind of see how that goes. So I'm just going to jump back into the chat. And Nerdy Blurb has got some comments. Let's have a read. So he says, my issue is a blatant race swap like Richards in this climate feels like the Oscars, as you said, a checklist. It feels hollow, and I don't want hollow characters. And then he's followed on to say, Leo, that's a pretty good way to put that. As a white dude, I've never seen it that way, that people of color need to see that it's possible to have those roles and jobs rather than just more color. So, Leo, what do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to the second comment, absolutely. Like, people need to see that they have opportunities. There are a lot of talented people that got passed up simply because of the color of their skin, not because of how talented they are. So that's pretty messed up. I lost the other one. Oh, okay. I don't think, again, Reed Richards is another character that I don't think is necessarily blatant. They get somebody that's extremely talented, that's Black, Latinx, Asian, South Asian. If he's a great actor and he can play a great Reed Richards, a calculating mind, sharp, quick leader, stretches his body, you know what I mean? I mean, somebody who just emulates all of that, I don't think it's blatant at all. I think that it's just choosing the best person for the job, regardless of what they look like, because they can fit into the Reed Richards mold.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, for a character like Thor, or for oh man, the petitions for Black Panther to be white were absolutely ridiculous on Facebook.
Yeah,
that was just ridiculous. But like changing characters like that would feel blatant. That there would be like, okay, well that's. But a character like Reed Richards, who is just kind of a super genius, not somebody who's Norse or Greek or, from a specific background per se.
Yeah,
that doesn't feel blatant to me.
Yeah. I get what you're saying there, and I think what's kind of important actually, and you touched on this. You said you want to see these big franchises leading that way, and I think it's really important because as much as we want new stories to be made, I want to see new stories. I want to see new ideas coming forward. I of course I want that. But the big franchises, Star Wars, MCU, Doctor Who having its first female Doctor, like these are important steps, because if the big franchises can do it and it works, and where it has, I think it has worked incredibly well, then that means studios are more likely to allow newer stories to come through. Here's the thing, like, for one of my videos in my Diversity Heroes series, which will be coming out in a couple of weeks, I'm talking about Jordan Peele. I'm going to give you guys a little insight into this video now. But looking at Jordan Peele, he had to put a lot of amazing hard work into making Get Out. From what I've learned, and if I'm correct, it was about 8 years of work to make sure that script was watertight. He brought it to a producer who, for the purpose of the story, is a white producer. And, this is the thing. These gatekeepers, which this producer is, they have the decisions to make what films get made and what don't. And he turned around and said, yeah, we're making Get Out. And look at the impact a film like Get Out had. How many of these films haven't got it past the producer going, yeah, I'm backing this, we're going to make this film? We don't know, because there has always been this idea in Hollywood that diverse films won't sell. They won't travel. They won't sell globally, let alone domestically. And it's not necessarily true. A study was made in 2017 to show that more diverse films with more diverse casts are out earning at the box office. Now, it shouldn't always come down to money. Of course not. We all want good stories. We all want to see new creative ideas. But the problem is, for the gatekeepers, it is about money. And if the big franchises, when Black Panther and Captain Marvel and Aquaman with Jason Momoa at the lead, when they gross over $1 billion, the studios are more likely to go, look at The Lion King. Great film for having a better represented cast, not necessarily the most fantastic film, but because it grossed over $1 billion, we're now talking about another Lion King film. Will we get to see another Aladdin film that grossed over $1 billion as well? These big important films with diverse casts and diverse, if we could get more diverse people behind the camera as well, then the little projects, the new stories, they'll start to come through, and we don't have to, people that worry about diversity and don't have to worry anymore. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we don't make diversity and we don't make quality mutually exclusive, because I feel we very much tread into dangerous territory then.
Yeah, and you were bringing up something good earlier. It makes you really think, how many movies got passed up simply because they're like, oh, well, that doesn't sell, that doesn't. It makes you wonder, like, how many Arrival starring Denzel Washington got tossed out the window? You know what I mean? How many small movies? And that's a really good point. Making more people behind the camera diverse is that there will be those smaller independent films that will do well, like an Arrival, that will make it through because it won't just be about looks anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just jump into the chat again real quickly. So Chillmonger's asking, why were the petitions to get a white T'Challa ridiculous, but a black Reed isn't? Reed stories are white man stories. Everything from parenting to Yancey Street to cartoon voice acting is white. What do you?
I can take this one.
Yeah,
well, because T'Challa is from Africa, and in the comics, it's like his whole entire origin is about being black. Reed Richards, I don't really think so. I have read some Fantastic Four comics, and I don't think there was any kind of exclusivity of him being white. So that's, for me, that's where it comes from, is that the characters and how their backgrounds are and how their backgrounds are created are very, very different.
Yeah.
You've got one who's the king of Africa, and then you've got one who is just a super smart, super genius guy. And for me, somebody that comes from a background like that, like Reed Richards, could be anyone. And I'm not just talking just black. I'm talking Latinx, South Asian. They could be anyone. It doesn't. I feel like anybody from any background could be a super genius, stretchy, leader of the Fantastic Four. It's just, it doesn't really tie into a race, and that background doesn't to me. But being king of Africa, being king of that Wakanda, the fictional African world in the MCU and in Marvel Comics, that to me screams black. You know what I mean?
Sure,
it's like that character needs to be black. It's the same with Thor. It would be weird to have a black Thor or Thor of another race because he's a Norse god from Norse mythology. So that's a character that I'm like, okay, that character should be white, but Black Panther, in my opinion, should be black. And then what he was also created for, to create diversity in comics during when Marvel Comics were at a time where there wasn't a lot of that. It means a lot.
Definitely. So I'm going to take this question from Nerdy Blurb TV because I think it's quite an interesting one. But is Get Out a diverse film? Trust me, it's amazing and one of my favorites ever. But what is diverse? I think you are questioning the right thing there, and it isn't what you would traditionally label a diverse film. I agree. And it brings me back to my point earlier about how representation is more important than diversity. And I think that it is a film that is better for representation because we are telling a story from the opinion of a lead black character. It is made by a black director and black creatives. And I think that is what that is why Get Out was important. And what it really highlighted out was the microaggressions. And, we're looking at that party scene in the middle of the film, the microaggressions that black people and Hispanic people and Asian people and women that they will face day to day, 24/7. And I think to answer that question, it's probably, I don't think it's a diverse film, but it's a very good representation film. And let's go to Nerdy's next question here as well, because I think this is a really interesting one. However, we definitely still fall on the outside of this, so we'll see. What are our opinions or thoughts on Ron Howard directing a heavy POC culture film here soon? Obviously, he's going to be directing the film about a Chinese pianist.
I'll let you go first. I'm still marinating on that one.
Yeah, sure. I'm kind of, as I say, we're still kind of on the outside of this. I think really it'd be better to get the opinion of someone from China about that rather than us. But seeing as you have asked, I would say one side of me is happy that the story is being told. The other side of me is it needs Asian people, East Asian people behind the camera, particularly if it's a Chinese film, Chinese people behind the camera to who understand that better who understand exactly, and Ron Howard could go out and do all the best research in the world, and knowing the director is, I'm in no doubt that he will. However, it will, it will always have that stigma sort of behind it that, yeah, but does he really know? And I think that's kind of what is key on that one.
Yeah, it's different between knowing and being able to research and living it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a big difference between that. And I feel you. I'm in between as well, because I am happy. I'm like, yes, we get to see this movie that with a pianist I've never heard of before. It'll expose us to some new things. But also having Ron Howard, it does feel kind of weird. It does feel like, okay. And then Lulu Wang had commented a lot on it, and it's like, why not her? Why didn't they attach her to the project and let somebody who is Asian work on it? It's a weird in between, because I'm excited to see the movie, but at the same time I'm like, but what about the people behind the camera? Are they going to be from a background that represents this character?
Sure.
It's definitely an in between. I would have preferred Lulu Wang to be on the project or an Asian director.
Yeah.
But kind of just is what it is. I wish it wasn't that way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And I think really, if you have a friend who is from China or of Chinese heritage, I would better ask their opinion on it, I think. Cool. All right. So I think I think maybe we kind of had a real great in-depth discussion here, and so let's just move into some final thoughts on diversity and representation.
Yeah, man. I mean, you said it perfectly. Like, representation is important, and the films about representation, I think we need more of them.
Sure.
Like, we're getting the diversity is happening. But we need some more films on representation, especially in MCU, especially in DC, and the big franchises. I'm glad to see some more Black directors, though, getting out there telling these stories. Jordan Peele's Get Out was fantastic. And after seeing that, and then seeing Black Panther, and then seeing Us, and getting to see like more representative films of my community is great. I definitely think there's some work to do in the Latinx community. There's some work to do in the South Asian communities to represent them better on screen. I definitely think they don't get enough. I was talking with somebody the other day, and I was saying DC should make a Blue Beetle show, because that's a character, that's a Latin character in the comics that is not nearly talked about enough in the movie and the TV series. A character that comes from a traditional Latin background that is rarely talked about. So I definitely think there should be a little bit more work done on representation in those communities.
Yeah, lovely. All right, man. So where can people find you?
Find me over at Geekly Goods, guys. I'm on
Geekly
YouTube,
Goods.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Search me up on any of the social media platforms and you'll find me. Coming up tomorrow, I actually have a live stream reacting to the latest trailers in the movie industry. Talking about that with Steph from over at Minute Movie Pop. So come on over and check that out. I've also been trying to check out a certain Netflix film that's coming up. So hopefully I'll get the opportunity to check that out. But I do movie reviews. I do reactions. I do rankings. I might do a Blu-ray haul. I didn't get too many Blu-rays this month, so probably not that. And stoked for PS5 and Miles Morales. I can't wait for that game. Oh, it's going to be so fun.
Yeah, oh my God.
But recently just checked out Possessor, so that movie review is up on the channel. And if you like sci-fi and horror, this is the perfect blend for you.
Definitely. Awesome, man. So do make sure you check Leo out over at Geekly Goods, everybody. It's a great channel. As soon as I found you, like I've latched on. I think, I love your energy, and you so beautifully come across as just a fan.
Hey,
you just love to watch stuff, and it's infectious, and I love it.
Thank you.
So if you like that kind of thing too, guys, you got to hop straight on over there. For me, coming up on the channel this Friday, whatever date that is that the 1st already, or are we on the 2nd? I cannot see. The 2nd, yes, Friday the 2nd. My next video in my Diversity Heroes series is coming up. I'm talking this week about Ava DuVernay and everything that she has done. So if you want to check that video out, make sure you are here on Friday. It will be dropping 9 a.m. BST. So guys in the States, by the time you wake up, it'll be there ready for you to watch, which is lovely. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you to Ryan from Nerdy Blurb TV. Thank you, Chillmonger. Thank you, Pilot Productions. It's been a great discussion, and it's really good to hear your guys' opinion as well. I think it's really important that people with differentiating opinions come together and we talk in this way. It's really important because that is how we learn, and that's how we find the middle ground that we are all after, I believe. Leo, thank you very much, man. It has been very fun to have you here.
Yeah, it's been a great time, man. Thanks for having me, and let's collab again soon.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you very much, guys. Geekly Goods, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Go check him out. Subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to this channel if you are new, and we'll see you very soon. Farewell.